Germanwings Flight 9525, The Pilot's Decision, Germanwings Tragedy. Introduction. On March 24, 2015, Germanwings Flight 9525, an Airbus A320, departed Barcelona for Düsseldorf with 144 passengers and 6 crew members on board. The routine flight across European skies soon turned into one of aviation's most tragic and puzzling disasters. This is the story of a pilot's decision that shocked the world and raised profound questions about aviation safety. Indicating ordinary beginning, the day started like any other. Passengers boarded Flight 9525 expecting a smooth journey to their destination. Among them were families, business travelers, and students. In the cockpit, Captain Patrick Sondenheimer and First Officer Andreas Lubitz prepared for the flight. Both were experienced, with Lubitz having completed extensive training. However, unbeknownst to everyone on board, Lubitz was concealing a personal struggle that would alter the course of history. Not indicate the flight takes off? The Airbus A320 lifted off smoothly, climbing to its cruising altitude of 3,800 feet. Passengers relaxed, sipping beverages and scrolling through in-flight magazines. Sondenheimer and Lubitz exchanged routine communications with air traffic control, not indicating distress. The atmosphere in the cockpit was professional and calm, a stark contrast to the storm brewing beneath the surface. A tragic decision. After reaching cruising altitude, Captain Sondenheimer briefly left the cockpit to use the restroom. This seemingly mundane moment became pivotal. With the cockpit door locked, Andreas Lubitz activated the descent mode, setting the aircraft on a deliberate collision course with the French Alps. Air traffic controllers noticed the sudden, unexplained descent and tried desperately to make contact, but their calls went unanswered. Chaos in the cabin. Inside the cabin, passengers began to sense something was wrong. The once level aircraft started to nosedive. Oxygen masks dropped, and fear gripped everyone aboard. Meanwhile, Captain Sondenheimer returned to find the cockpit door locked from the inside. Using every tool available, he tried to break down the reinforced door, shouting for Lubitz to open it. But Lubitz remained silent, focused on his fateful decision. Impact and aftermath. At 10:41 a.m., Flight 9525 crashed into the rugged terrain of the French Alps at a speed exceeding 400 miles per hour. The impact obliterated the aircraft, leaving no survivors. The crash site, a remote and mountainous area, was strewn with debris and marked by unimaginable devastation. Rescuers and investigators faced the arduous task of piecing together what had happened. The investigation. The cockpit voice recorder revealed the chilling truth. Lubitz, battling severe depression and under pressure to hide his condition from his employer, had deliberately caused the crash. This revelation sent shockwaves through the aviation community and led to intense scrutiny of mental health protocols for pilots. How could such a tragedy occur, and what steps could prevent a recurrence? Legacy of the tragedy. The Germanwings tragedy forced the aviation industry to confront difficult questions about mental health, cockpit security, and the balance between personal privacy and public safety. Airlines worldwide implemented changes such as requiring 2 crew members to be present in the cockpit at all times. Families of the victims, however, were left with an unfillable void, their lives forever altered by one man's decision. Conclusion. The story of Germanwings Flight 9525 is a haunting reminder of the fragility of life and the weight of responsibility carried by those entrusted with it. It also underscores the importance of addressing mental health with compassion and vigilance to ensure the safety of everyone who steps aboard an aircraft. Germanwings Flight 9525, The Pilot's Decision. Germanwings Tragedy. On March 24, 2015, Germanwings Flight 9525 departed from Barcelona's El Prat Airport at 10:01 a.m. local time, bound for Düsseldorf, Germany. It was a routine flight operated by Lufthansa's low-cost subsidiary Germanwings. Aboard the Airbus A320 were 144 passengers and 6 crew members, business people, tourists, students, and families returning home. The skies were clear, the weather ideal. For most, it was just another ordinary day. Yet for one man in the cockpit, it was a day meticulously planned to rewrite the lives of 149 others. What unfolded in the hours to come would become one of aviation's darkest chapters, sparking global outrage and a reevaluation of mental health policies within the airline industry. Preparing for flight, the morning began unremarkably at Barcelona Airport. Captain Patrick Sondenheimer, an experienced and affable aviator, was leading the flight, accompanied by First Officer Andreas Lubitz, a 27-year-old who had recently completed his training. Passengers streamed onto the aircraft, greeted warmly by the cabin crew. In the cockpit, pre-flight checks were conducted efficiently. Sondenheimer and Lubitz communicated seamlessly, discussing the flight plan, weather conditions, and standard operating procedures. None of the passengers or crew had any inkling of the mental turmoil concealed behind Lubitz's composed exterior. Into the skies. At 10:01 a.m., the Airbus A320 taxied to the runway and lifted off without incident. The ascent was smooth, and the aircraft quickly reached its cruising altitude of 3,800 feet. Passengers settled into their seats, many reading, chatting, or catching up on sleep. In the cockpit, the pilots exchanged routine information with air traffic control. Lubitz appeared calm, executing his duties without error. However, beneath the surface, he was grappling with severe depression and a desire to make an irreversible statement. The cockpit door, reinforced after the events of 9/11 to prevent hijackings, would soon become a barrier between life and death. The fatal decision. At 10:27 a.m., Captain Sondenheimer left the cockpit to use the restroom. Lubitz seized the moment, locking the cockpit door and overriding the flight's autopilot settings. He programmed the aircraft to descend rapidly toward the French Alps. Air traffic controllers at Eurocontrol noticed the descent and attempted to contact the crew. Their calls went unanswered. The silence from the cockpit raised alarm bells, and neighboring aircraft were asked to establish visual contact with Flight 9525. No response came from Lubitz, who remained resolutely focused on his grim objective: fear in the cabin. As the aircraft began its steep descent, passengers felt the pressure changes. Oxygen masks deployed, and confusion turned to terror. Some may have assumed a technical failure, others would have recognized the severity of the situation. Cabin crew struggled to maintain order, unaware of the true cause of the descent. Behind the locked cockpit door, Captain Sondenheimer returned, realizing something was wrong. He demanded Lubitz open the door, banging on it with increasing urgency. His pleas were met with cold silence. The reinforced door, designed to withstand external threats, now ensured no one could stop Lubitz from carrying out his plan. Collision with the Alps. At 10:41 a.m., after 8 minutes of descent, Flight 9525 crashed into the rugged slopes of the French Alps at a speed of approximately 700 kilometers per hour. The impact obliterated the aircraft, scattering debris across a remote and treacherous terrain near the village of Le Vernet. Rescue teams were dispatched immediately, but faced immense challenges due to the area's inaccessibility. Helicopters hovered above the crash site, capturing scenes of devastation. The absence of survivors was confirmed within hours, leaving families of the victims in utter despair. Unveiling the truth. The recovery of the cockpit voice recorder, CVR, revealed a chilling sequence of events. Lubitz's breathing remained calm throughout the descent, even as Sondenheimer and others tried desperately to regain control. His motivations were pieced together through personal medical records. Lubitz had been declared unfit to fly by several doctors due to severe depression and suicidal tendencies. Yet he had concealed his condition from Germanwings and continued working. The investigation highlighted lapses in airline policies regarding pilot mental health and the extent of medical privacy. Public outrage grew as details emerged, demanding accountability from both Germanwings and regulatory authorities. Aftermath and reform. The tragedy of Flight 9525 led to sweeping changes in aviation protocols. Airlines worldwide adopted policies requiring at least 2 crew members to remain in the cockpit at all times. Pilot screening processes were intensified, and discussions around mental health became central to safety reforms. For the victims' families, these changes came too late. Memorials were erected in Le Vernet, in their home countries, honoring the lives lost in this senseless tragedy. Survivors' loved ones continue to advocate for greater transparency and support systems for those in high-responsibility professions. Conclusion: lessons from tragedy. Germanwings Flight 9525 serves as a stark reminder of the human dimension of aviation safety. While technological advancements have made air travel remarkably secure, The mental well-being of those at the controls remains a critical, often overlooked factor. This story is not only about one man's decision, but also about society's responsibility to support mental health with compassion, understanding, and proactive intervention. It is a haunting legacy that demands continuous reflection to ensure such a tragedy never happens again.